All right, here we have a rational equation. First, to talk about this rational equation, we have always, if we have variables in the denominators, we have things called restricted values. Restricted values are the values that we can't have as solution. In this case, the values that we can't have are just 4, actually. 4 is the number that makes this denominator 0 and also this denominator 0. Okay, so we'll check back to that in a little bit. Now what we're going to do is we need to find the least common denominator of all these terms. One thing to realize is that the only two interesting denominators are this first one and this one on the right-hand side of the equation. We do want to think of this middle term here as a 1 over 1, but that 1 as a denominator is not going to do much for us. And our goal is to create these all into the same denominator. I could do that by multiplying this on the top and the bottom by 4. And why that would work is because this 4 gets distributed both of these terms, and that would give me a 4x minus 16. So that works. Another way of doing that, by the way, is I could have factored this first one. I factored a 4 out, which is the GCF, and realized that that was 4 times x minus 4. That's another way of thinking about finding those common denominators. The only other thing I need to do is I need to multiply this middle term. I need to build this into that same denominator, so I'm going to multiply that on the top and the bottom by 4 times x minus 4. I'll show that on the next step. So what I have here would be x over 4 times x minus 4. I haven't done anything there. This middle term, I'll be multiplying by this 4 times x minus 4 on the top and the bottom. Another way of thinking about this middle term is that this is a 1, and any fraction that has the same numerator and denominator is equal to 1. And then over here, I should have shown I'm not just going to multiply the denominator by 4, I also have to multiply the numerator by 4 when I do that. And so what I'll result in over here is a 4 over 4 times x minus 4. Okay, at this point, if every term of this equation is the same, and I've taken into account my restricted values, what I'm allowed to do is just rewrite this equation without these denominators. And so this becomes x minus 4 times x minus 4 equals 4. One note on that step, by the way, is I'm not just getting rid of the denominators. What I'm actually doing at this point is I'm multiplying both sides of this equation by that least common denominator. This is actually a step you could have done in the first stage, and some people teach it that way or talk about it that way. But if I multiply both sides of this equation by the 4 times x minus 4, what it has the effect of doing is just canceling out all of my denominators. Either way, I'm left with this equation down below, which is a nice linear equation at this point. And so we'll solve this by first distributing the negative 4. So I get x minus 4x plus 16 equals 4. And then we'll get negative 3x equals minus 16 over here be minus 12. And then went from there. I divide both sides by negative 3. And what I get is x equals 4. Again, dividing by the negative 3 gives me a positive 4 answer. All right, that's the solution to my rational equation, as long as it's not one of my restricted values. But in this case, x can't be 4. And again, that was the case up here because this value of x equals 4 makes this denominator 0, which is not allowed. It's not within the domain of this expression, or in other words, it's a restricted value. So actually, for this problem, since this was the only possible solution that was given to me, and it can't be a solution, we actually have no solution for this problem. So always, in quick recap, you solve these by finding a common denominator and then solving the resulting equation. But you always need to make sure that your one or more of your answers are not restricted values to the original problem.